Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This means a lot. Show number 1 of the new year.
Love it. Woo-woo.
A lot to cover. I got a lot of questions for you. I'm very curious.
Excellent.
You are a raving success, but also someone that's in a field that I really admire, which is motivation and mentoring and just helping the human condition.
Absolutely. I love it. I love to get out there and make a difference, make an impact, inspire, and empower. That's what I'm here for. Okay,
well, let's really get into it. So, I was privy to have just a sneak peek of a couple chapters of the new book.
Yes,
I've read it, and
not everyone has. I mean, it doesn't even come out for half a year, and I'm like,
but thank you for that.
You the copy.
but thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you for reading.
And I will tell you, 2 things. First off, it's very good. There's no fluff. And with a lot of books, how-to books on life, how to do this, how to do that, mentoring style books, encouragement books, empowerment books, oftentimes you got to separate them, I think, between the fluff and the facts.
Yes.
Very in-depth and very straightforward. So I would commend you there. I also will say the second part of the first 3 chapters that I read was that while your work is done with empowering women, as a man, I read that book, and it certainly is applicable to both genders.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
There's no question.
I appreciate it. And I wanted it to be that broad. You know, I'm publishing this time. This is my 13th book. It's called Ballgowns to Yoga Pants, Entrepreneurial Secrets for Building Your Dream Business and Brand. And when I sat down to write it, I didn't necessarily write it for women, but women have been my audience, and they have come around me, and we've formed this global sisterhood, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
But I wanted it to be for anyone that wanted to get to their dream life, their dream brand, their dream business, and just make it happen.
So let's start with that book, and then we'll circle around as we talked. I want to definitely hear your story. In that book, what was poignant to me was that you immediately came and shared your story, and it wasn't all glossy and fun.
No, it's not.
but you were able to make an immediate impact, I think, and the readers will find that it's out too, I believe, immediate impact in where you were going by using your story.
Yeah, I had to get real. And
immediately.
Absolutely. And actually, this is my 13th book, but 3 years ago, I wrote my 13th book, and I read it, and I was like, this is BS. When I read it, I was like, it's the wrong book. I was so mad at myself.
It's the wrong book.
Yeah, it's the wrong book. I hit delete. I got rid of it.
Really?
I put it in the trash on the computer.
Okay.
Yeah, because it wasn't going to impact my readers the way I needed it to. And I needed to get really real and really raw and figure out, how did I become this entrepreneur? How did I make these moves in media? How did I do it so that they could do it too? And then I had to tap into my professor brain, because, I was a professor for a decade, tenured professor over at Bobby Moe, Robert Moore's right down the street.
Absolutely.
And I really had to get into that inquiry method where I'm asking the reader those right questions so that it taps into who they are and who their brand should be.
Okay, that's funny you said that, because a couple of these really were very good, and I thought they came at you immediately. One of the biggest complaints I've always had as someone who loves to read but seeks out motivational material is that a lot of it tends to be regurgitated, and I get a point of that because there's only so much out there, and we take from things that influence us, and we kind of formulate our own way. I'm okay with that.
Yes.
But a lot of it ends up being, you're 30 pages into a book, and it's like they're not saying, they're not asking me any questions. They're dictating.
Yes.
And the worst thing you can do, I think, as an author is to, if it's a nonfiction self-help book or a motivational or empowerment book, is to dictate.
Right.
Only.
Right.
Am I
because
right?
then I don't want to just be pouring knowledge into somebody. I want them to be getting inside their own head and saying, oh, okay, she did that, and then Sarah Blakely Banks did that, and then this person did that, and that's how they became a billionaire, and that's how they became a millionaire, and that's how she's able to be at the bus stop for her kid when she comes home from school, so that they can make it all happen for themselves. Because I don't know your story yet. I want to know your story. I want to know everybody's story, but they have to put it on the pages right along with me.
Agreed. And you really, in chapter 1, ran right into it. You're asking the reader the question, what would the issues be if you left your stable job for entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Right away. Because that's really, if they can't figure that out, the rest of it's not going to help them, right?
No,
I mean, that's where it starts.
It can be a train wreck. If you just say one day, and you see it all the time on social media now, I quit my job, I'm a self-made person now, and they're like, but then they go home to their significant other and they're like, you did what? How am I going to pay the bills? Where's the health insurance coming from? What am I supposed to put on the food food for the table tonight? You really have to think through that process,
right?
And it was Nikki Mans, who invented the Nikki's Magic Wand for lip gloss. She's a Pittsburgh person here. Mm-hmm. She's been on QVC and everything. And she told me, she said, Shellie, if you have a job, you ride that baby until the wheels fall off.
Right.
Like, you don't just go out and quit your job.
Right.
And I didn't. I kept my professor position, which I loved.
Right.
But I kept it for 5 years of creating this stuff. When I had the television show, Inspiring Lives with Dr. Shellie, and then I had the radio show, Empowering Women Radio, that was syndicated to 120 radio stations around the world. I wasn't just doing that. That wouldn't have sustained my family.
Right. Yeah, I think that this is the hard. You're asking the hard questions right up front that I think a lot of people need to hear immediately, because entrepreneurship
absolutely
is wonderful as it is, and I've spoken many times on this show that it's so wonderful that when I get asked questions about how I did this or that, or how my lifestyle is this way as opposed to this way, you want to share,
right,
and you want to help, but at times it's just not for some people at that moment in their life can't get there. Right? And I'm sure that has to be a huge amount of frustration for the work that you do at times.
Yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it's a risk as a writer to, on the first couple pages, say, this might not be for you.
Exactly right.
But I have to be real with them
you are.
And say that, it might not be right for you.
Yeah.
But if it is, keep digging in the book.
Well, the next question is, now that we got that out of the way, what would be the benefits of being your own boss and a thriving entrepreneur? And that's you need to have that.
Absolutely. I love being an entrepreneur. I love it because of what I can provide for my children. I've got a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I get to be there for them all the time. They get to travel the world with me if that's appropriate for that time, or I can go and just do and be and help people. Like, my heart, I have to help. That's how I'm wired. That's how I've always been. And so I now get to go and do that on a broader scale. When I was in the classroom, I started off as a special ed teacher years ago. Then I was an assistant principal. Then I was a tenured professor. And then I started this whole motivational media company. But as I've gone, I had the little tiny classroom, and then it got bigger and bigger, and then I was teaching teachers how to teach other teachers, and they go out and have their classrooms. Now I'm teaching business people how to start their businesses, and they're going out and helping people. And it's just, it's like a tree. I just planted these seeds, and it's growing up, and the branches are all coming off, and then all these leaves, and it's getting bigger and bigger.
And that's the exciting thing about entrepreneurship, when it really hits and it starts to work for you, and you see the fruits of your labor.
Oh, yeah.
It's
beautiful.
It is. And it's hard to describe that joy to someone who hasn't done it.
Yes.
You want to.
Yes. That's why they got to get Ballgowns yoga pants.
That's right. That's what she's trying to do exactly here. But you also, in that same chapter, you talk about would you be able to bootstrap and pay with the money that you've saved, and how, what is your investment money going to be? Would you have to go to a small business loan? I love this because this is the nuts and bolts of reality in being an entrepreneur, and you're getting at it immediately.
Yes.
So I commend you on that fact alone.
Thank you.
As a read, it reads really well. It's definitely not fluff.
No fluff.
I've read my fair share of fluff, believe me. I just got one. I will not tell you the author's name or the name of the work. Disappointed.
Really?
It's thick, but I'm four chapters in, and there's just nothing there.
And I think some people start off and they feel they have to build their credentials the whole time, and so it sounds like, well, I did this and I did that, and I did this great, and wait do you see what else I can do?
Pretty much.
And I didn't want to come across like that, because that's not who I am.
Okay, so this book's going to be out, I believe, mid 2020? July.
Yes.
Date certain July.
You gotta wait, but it's worth the wait. Am I right?
Yeah, I will tell you, the first 3 chapters are very, very well written, and they ask some tough questions right off the bat, which I think the reader needs to address immediately.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and you set it up right. It's encouraging, but
Thank you.
It's you're not waiting to the end to find out, well, how did this happen? You know, and I think that's, again, with self-help or motivation or empowerment material, oftentimes there's just no meat in there, and if it is, you got to wait till the end.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
Totally agree.
Okay.
Totally agree.
All right, so talk to me a little bit about childhood with you.
Oh, let's go back.
You grew up
all the way back.
you grew up in Akron, right?
I did. I grew up in Akron, Ohio. So great people in that town. Tire capital of the world.
It is. It is.
Yes, I loved growing up there. I was a pain in the ass as a teenager, but I don't know where we want to go with this.
Oh, do tell. Do tell.
Oh, my parents could tell that story. No, so, I mean, how far do you want to go back?
Well, I'm looking. I really would like to hear what was childhood like. You made a comment. You were quoted as saying that you got on stage at 4.
Yeah.
It all started for you at 4.
Absolutely.
You must have liked the adulation and the applause. And
I did. and I liked, getting to be different people. Yeah, so my mom ran the local theater there.
Okay.
Coach House Theater, and also Weather Vane Theater in Akron. And so when they needed a kid, they would just, I was that kid. And I was whatever role that needed to be. And I had zero fear, and still have zero fear of, getting in front of a couple thousand people now. I go out and I do these big shows and interview people live on stage, and it's wonderful. I literally feel like I'm talking to a person in my living room when I'm in front of thousands of people, millions on TV. So yeah, I just love it. It's the comfort zone.
Anything you can look back in your childhood, whether it was grade school, high school, was there ever a moment in there that was so impactful that you still remember career-wise, or the decision to be an entrepreneur? You saw something that someone was doing, maybe, or was there any impactful moments?
When I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, when you were young, what did you want to be? If when you were 10 years,
I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to be on Broadway.
Really?
Oh
okay.
yeah, absolutely. I was definitely going to take that world by storm.
Okay.
So I definitely have that element of performing still with what I do, particularly when I'm on stage or in a studio.
Right.
So yeah, I've got a belter voice. Yeah, I can.
Okay. Okay. But you wanted to be in showbiz, though.
I wanted to be in showbiz. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So I kind of took a roundabout way of doing that. I get to still do a lot of things with media.
Sure.
And just did the 22nd magazine cover, and get to.
I saw that.
And also with my voice, I've done many. I don't know if you know about the global galas and the Taste of Broadway. So my friends and I. So for the last 20 years in Pittsburgh,
yes.
I've been putting on these huge cabaret performances and raising money for. So for instance. We did Taste of Broadway, brought in people from LA and New York, and I kind of headlined it. We did this huge thing over at the Priory, food and incredible entertainment. And over the 10-year span, I was actually able to raise over $100,000 for the Homeless Children's Education Fund.
Okay.
And that's Joe Lagana, who has run that for years, and they work with 17 different shelters. They put learning supplies and books and computers and everything right there in the shelters for those kiddos. So I kind of use all the things that I love still. And I do it on my time. I do it on my, I come up with, this is the big picture. This is what it's going to be like. And then my friends are like, oh shit, she's got another crazy idea.
I get it.
Yeah, and then we just make it happen and make it happen for women and children all over the world, and we just do it.
So obviously you're still involved in show business.
I love it. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So out of high school, you went to Duquesne?
I went to Duquesne. Okay. Yes. So actually, I went to. I shouldn't say that.
We're all about the story.
Yeah. Okay, so I really, really thought that I could get away with being a brat all through high school and junior high and still get into the college that I wanted to get into.
You're not alone.
Yeah. No, literally, Eric, I had a permanent seat in Saturday detention. Like, they'd be like, Shellie, take your seat. And I'd be like, rolling my eyes and doing the whatevers. So yeah, I always had that because I was just always, I wasn't like really a bad kid, but I just was on the cusp of being a bad kid. You know what I mean? Like right there. And so, and they almost thought that I wasn't going to graduate. So here now I have my doctorate in educational leadership, but there was a point where they thought there's no way she's going to graduate.
It's so interesting because when I sit across from accomplished people on this show, that story is
comes up a lot.
It's so common.
Yeah.
It's
because
so common.
I think that we learn differently and we react to things differently, and that the first part of my career was reaching kids that weren't being reached by traditional educational methods. And I kind of had to reteach myself everything because I just wasn't paying attention. I was creating and dreaming and, you know, using my imagination and trying on different people. Like I was always like every day, if you would have seen me in high school, Eric, I was a different person. I was like the punk rocker and I had like the black lipstick and safety pins in my ears. And then the next day I'd be totally preppy. So I was like trying to figure out who I really was.
I think we all go through that identity thing in school, right?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Some of us figure it out. Some of us never figure it out.
Right, exactly. And I think that for me, I realized at a certain point that I didn't have to just be, you know, one way. You know,
Absolutely
like
right.
I could be the woman in sequins and, you know, fabulousness on stage, and then I could be the mom running around in yoga pants with my phone, you know, taking care of my kids and taking care of business as well. So you can kind of do it all, whatever you want to do.
And I think that's the last part is what it is, whatever you want to do. And would you not agree it's such a common thread in entrepreneurship because because with entrepreneurship done correctly comes freedom.
Yes.
And with freedom, you literally can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Absolutely.
And that's empowering.
Yeah, it is. It is because you don't want to stay inside that box. I had a boss who will remain nameless, but I was telling him, I came up with this incredible plan and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I said, and I don't stay inside the box. And he looked at me and he said, Shellie, I think we need you to get back inside the box. And I was like, yeah, okay, I think my time's up on this job.
That's great.
Because I can't.
Yeah, we're just not wired that way.
No, absolutely not. No, I can't stay there.
Okay, so I'm not letting you get out of this. So when the grades were bad, did you go to Duquesne right away?
No, I went to another school. And I went to the only school that would take me because it was like one of these like open admissions, like you could, anybody would. So I would like to say the name of it, but I'm not going to say that because it's not fair to that school because it was great for me. It was a launching pad, and I got in there and I figured it out the way that I needed to learn. So
okay.
I was reteaching myself multiplication tables because like I didn't get that crap when it was first given to me because it wasn't being taught to me in the way that I learn. So I really recreated myself, really got down to the business of, and moved to Duquesne because I got a 4.0 at this university because then it was like, okay, I got this. Let's do this.
Okay.
And
what was your major at Duquesne?
Education.
Okay.
Lots and lots of education in my background.
Okay.
So special ed, elementary ed. My master's degree was in curriculum and instruction, and then my doctorate was in educational leadership.
Okay. Where did the education bug hit you, or when did it hit you?
Oh, I know that story.
Okay. I gotta get one right.
So, absolutely. No, you got this. So I was in 4th grade, and we went to school and workshop for, at the time they called it mentally retarded. School and workshop, we would say developmentally delayed now.
Which is much better.
Yes, absolutely. But that was the official name on the school. Yep. So we went there on a field trip. And we were there all day. We ate lunch with the kiddos, and we were just kind of bonding with them. And I came home to my mom, and she was making dinner, and she I ran into the room and I said, and I know that this is not the correct terminology anymore. Just keep that in mind. But I ran into the room and I was so excited. I was like, Mom, if anybody's going to have a kid that's mentally retarded, it should be me. And she was like, okay. You're in fourth grade. And then she like went back to stirring her spaghetti. And I went and played. And then I came back in and she said, Shellie, maybe someday you'll teach those kids. And I said, maybe I will. And that kind of planted the seed. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 12, which is very unusual age to do this, but I went to that same school and workshop and I said, I want to volunteer. I want to do whatever I can do. I want to teach. And so they had me teaching like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week during the summer. Like,
wow, at 12.
Yeah, but volunteer.
Wow.
And I just took it on. And then I met this one young lady who changed my life with, I connected with her. She couldn't speak. She couldn't do most of the things that we typically do. Mm-hmm. And she just had this like cool vibe about her. Okay. And I really zoned in on her. And she was just kind of like, she'd just kind of spin around and she was like, like all over the place. And I went to the teacher that was running the classroom and I said, I want to teach her to talk. Okay. And I'm 12. And I don't know anything about this. And this woman was not a good role model, Eric. Like she was like, don't work with these kind of kids because it'll drive you to drink. And I was like, she
said that to you?
Yes.
Wow.
And she was like, fine, I'll give you a little space. So she gave me the coat room closet and I set it up with 2 little chairs. And every day, Wendy and I sat there and we just went back and forth. And I tried to get her to talk and I couldn't do it, anything that I could think of. And then I went back to my voice lessons because I was a vocal person. Right. And I took my hand over my face and I went, and then and took hand to her face, my hand, my face, and we went back and forth and we kept doing that. And I put her hand on my throat. I mean, you couldn't even probably do some of this stuff nowadays, but I put my hand on her hand on my throat and her hand on her throat so that she could make the vocal noises. Okay. And it was absolutely amazing. The moment that she said, low. And it was her very first word. And then she went and said it to her mom that day. And her mom was just bawling. She thought this child would never, ever talk. And that
had to be hugely impactful.
It was so big. It was so big for the mom. I'm getting like goosebumps right now telling it. But it was so big for the mom. And it was so big for me that I knew that I had a calling to help people and just make a difference in the world. Okay. So,
but you really went for significant studies at Duquesne.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely, yeah. And while I was doing my doctorate, I was writing my dissertation. I was running a school I was an assistant principal. I had 200 kids, kindergarten to 12th grade. Okay. All had severe emotional behavioral needs. They had everything from they were homicidal, suicidal, bipolar, schizophrenic. I mean, they had some real issues. So I was writing my dissertation, doing the assistant principalship, and I also wrote my very first book at the exact same time. So, and it was a Duquesne degree, but it was in Shippensburg because I did the 3 to 4 hour drive back and forth for 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of a nut.
Well, you like a full schedule, that's for darn sure.
I definitely like being busy. Yes, busy but blessed.
So when you finished your doctorate, when you wrote your first book, I guess I want to what was so significant about that first book that made you want to, number one, write more? And was that first book the catalyst for you to do more than what you were currently doing, like to reach out and broaden your horizon on the women's empowerment movement?
No, that didn't come until much later. So at the beginning, the first half of the 13th books were all very academic, very scholarly, very research-based.
So you were a technical writer then? Theoretically, to some degree.
Like if you look at Pearson books, the textbooks that are used in college classrooms around the world, that's one of the people that I wrote for.
Okay.
And I wrote a 300-page textbook that's being used in colleges around the world.
Okay.
So they were more along those lines. And then I had a wonderful experience and met a woman, another woman that really just changed my life with, do you want that story?
I sure do.
I bet you do.
I really want to find that.
Piece together this
I want to find that spark that actually set everything that we have now in motion.
I love it. Yes. So that was Clarelle. So I did a radio show. I was doing lots of radio shows. I was doing a book tour for one of my more academic books. It was Mentoring Magic, Pick the Card for Your Success.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was with Dr. Claudia Bavaro. She was one of my students, but
that was when you say technical. I guess I'm confused. So that's already into the entrepreneurial bent, right?
No, not really. This was more about education.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one was more about education. Good questions. You're good.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm doing Mentoring Magic, Pick the Card for Your Success. I'm on the radio. It goes well. It's out of Michigan. What's the
name of the show? Was it your show?
No, this was not my show. This was Ordinary People, Extraordinary Planet.
Okay.
So I did this show, and
I saw the video clip for that.
One of those.
That was a good one. That's okay.
He's piecing it all together. I love this.
No, I am. I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm trying to. I like to build the timeline in my head, so it's easier. I think for audience to understand where we're headed.
Absolutely. And it's a windy road.
It is a windy road. It is a windy road.
So, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Planet, I'm on the show, and the gentleman, the host, calls me back and says, oh, the track didn't work out, so we have to re-record it. And I was like, if you do a long show and you're like, we nailed that, it's good. And he's like, it didn't work. And I'm like, darn it.
Ouch.
And he says, but I want you to connect with this woman before we get on the show. He said, if she might be able to help you with your book. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So I call this woman, and she's got a company called Mind Your Biz. And I found out through our conversation that it was Mind Your Biz because she had a brain aneurysm. And she had this fascinating story. It was so fascinating that I literally dropped I'm using my phone, and I said, I got to put you on speaker, and I put her on speaker, and then I grabbed my laptop and I open it up and I'm typing and I'm crying because the story is so amazing. She's a single mom of 3, and she goes through a brain aneurysm, and she was getting her doctorate at the same time. And I was like, oh my God, I can so relate to this. And, she's telling me the story, tears are running down my face, and I'm done. And I said, Clarelle, are there other people like that have these stories? And she was like, yeah, and you should be the one to tell it. And she was like, we need to start making this happen. So then the next day I call up Ray, and we're re-recording the radio show. Mm-hmm. And he does this 3, 2, 1, we're on. So as he's counting 3, 2, 1, I was like, look, is anybody written these down in a book? Because if they have to be written down in a book, it has to be me, and I need to be the author, and we're on.
Okay.
A week after that, I get a link in my email. It's a YouTube link. It's a national television show, and he's on television saying, Dr. Shellie Hipsky of Robert Morris University is going to write the book, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Planet. And I was like, oh my God. I better get busy.
Yeah, no turning back there.
Yeah, so then we took transcripts, and we created that very first inspirational book that I had ever done. And those 13 people that had been interviewed for that went into that book, I became very close with them. And then when I started my television show over at the NBC studios here in Pittsburgh, I was able to bring in some of them, but then bring in some other people and from around the world. And we made this amazing television show, and the rest is kind of history. Then it went from there into the radio show, and
that book,
and on from there.
That book and the television show that spurned from it, correct?
Yes.
Was it really about women's struggles in different countries?
Great question. Okay, no, it was about everybody. It was men and women and some people that were from other countries, but they all had the link of they had conquered some kind of obstacle, whether it be homelessness or everything, divorce, domestic violence, really, really tough subjects
sure.
from, ones that are
sure.
around the world.
Sure.
And I took this amazing group of people and brought them into Pittsburgh, and we just made it happen. So, but then I did go through the divorce, and I had a 3-year-old.
Let's talk about that for a second, can we?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
It's a very part of the first.
Very important part.
That's chapter 1 of the book.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, you had plans, if I remember correctly from reading, you had plans to, was it, what, it was, stop. The television, stop my own brain. The television show had already been in production, and you were doing it.
Yeah.
And then you had something else you were working on at that moment as well, too, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And then the divorce came, and you kind of revealed that in a semi-public manner.
I did. Yes, I was at a women's entrepreneurial event, and I'm all done up. I've got my little power suit on at the time. I was feeling okay, but behind the mask that we all wear, I was really struggling because I knew that I had to go through this divorce. I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and businesses, and I had the full-time professorship, and my heart was broken.
Oh, sure.
And the woman at the front of the room that was leading this whole, entrepreneurial experience, she had a few people stand up and say who they are because she was, just trying to put it out there, who's in the room. And she said, Doc Shellie Hipsky, please stand up. And she said, so what's going on in your so perfect, very personal, very public life? And I was
That's actually how she phrased it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just I was like, oh my God, the tears just flew down my face, and everybody's staring at me. And I was like, well, I got to be honest here. It's not perfect anymore. And I have to go through this divorce. And I feel like, everything is crashing down around me, basically, because that's where I was at that time. And I was just very brutally honest about it. And a lot of women came up to me and hugged me, and they were like, you're going to make it through this, and you're going to thrive. And I was like, you know what? I am. I really am. It's going to be okay. And I'm going to find a way to continue my inspirational stuff and find a way to, pick myself up and my kiddos up, and we're going to just move forward with life. We're going to make it happen.
After that, or shortly after that, did you take the trip to Paris?
That was after the Paris trip came after the Empowering Women radio. So I found a way to do radio from my home, like a studio that I created in my home.
Right.
You have a good memory.
I read.
I love that. I love readers. So we changed it to Empowering Women Radio. I looked at who my audience was, and it was these incredible empowered women. And I was doing hundreds of the shows. And then I got the top 100 and created the Common Threads book series, book trilogy.
Right. Now, was each of those topics?
Yes. So it was inspiration, empowerment, and balance.
Did you actually paint those words on a sheet?
I did. Oh my gosh. I love how you just dug into this.
That's a great story. That's why.
I was so baffled as to how I was going to put all these amazing stories into a book. And it was middle of the night, probably 1 or 2 in the morning. And I just got this urge to take my kids' like Crayola paints, and I needed to paint on something. I had no poster board. I had no paper that was big enough. And I grabbed like the biggest white sheet from my closet, and I just painted in 3 different colors and 3 different fonts, might have had. If it was on a typewriter, not painted.
She can paint in fonts. I can't spell my name in cursive anymore.
All the gifts. So I did 3 different ones, and it said inspiration, empowerment, and balance. And I like looked at it and I was like, what the hell is this? And I actually took my the curtain rod. I took down my curtain, and I say in the book, it's a good thing I wasn't married to anybody at the time, because they would have been like, what the hell are you doing? So I took it and I put it up on a curtain rod, and I'm like my huge window is here, and I've got this big sheet, and it says inspiration, empowerment, and balance. And I was like, oh, trilogy, that's it. And then I was able to use more of my research type of brain, and then like I had thousands and thousands of pages of transcripts that I had to find a way to kind of code out. And
was that hard to be that selective?
It was a little tricky. I had billions of colored Post-it notes that matched the colors of the paint on the sheet.
I bet.
I'm giving away all my crazy author secrets here. So, and I had to go through them and just like pull out the different stories and tell it in their voice. And I do have a story also about not telling something in someone's voice.
Okay.
Can I tell you that?
Of course.
Okay.
Anything you want.
Back with Ordinary People, Extraordinary Planet, I had these transcripts, and I was writing in their voice. And Ray Juarez Jr. is with the Homeless by Choice tour. We've done some amazing things together.
The
Homeless by Choice tour. So he was homeless when he was a kid.
Okay.
With his baby brother. They were put out on the street, basically, and they couch surfed. He was, I may get this wrong, I think he was 14, and he had a baby brother with him. And so they were couch surfing and, living on different people's couches and trying to go to school. And now he has an incredible business that he runs, and he's got 2 books out that he's written, and he's spoken across America on this Homeless by Choice tour. It's just an amazing gentleman, and he was really instrumental in a lot of things. But back when I was writing that section, so I'm speaking in Latino male voice, and I'm trying to write it according to the transcripts and get the right vibe. And honestly, Eric, I thought I did a damn good job. Oh my God, was I wrong? Oh, couldn't have been further wrong. He contacted me, and I was like, oh, he's gonna love this. Oh, I'm like, I got this. He's like, Shellie, it is so wrong.
And I was so like, what? Wrong. It's so wrong.
I was like, what do you mean? And he said, I never would have written that. I never would have said it that way. And I said, why? And he said, because I've forgiven.
Wow.
I was like, how could you forgive?
Wow, that's powerful.
Somebody that put you out on the street when you were homeless when you were a kid. And he's like, I've totally forgiven. And I was like, it was so, like, my heart, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, if I read through it, I wouldn't have. I didn't know that from the from the transcripts. I didn't know that from what I would have felt, but I wasn't him.
Right.
So we had to go back and completely re-record and re-feel out how that should have been written.
Okay.
But it gave me such a lesson in forgiveness. Like, if he could forgive that, I could forgive just about anything that's happened to me. So yeah, that was a big lesson. And life is full of these little lessons. If you just listen close enough and always go back to make sure that the person is saying it, that you're saying it the way they wanted to say it.
Right.
Huge lessons have been revealed.
Yeah, it had to be humbling for you too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You, as an author, you can get into your little zone and you think that you got it going on, and you get all these people reading you and all that stuff, and then it just takes you down a peg and it makes you really think. So it's good. It's good. It's healthy.
Well, that's when the Common Threads series, you wrote that. Is that correct?
Yes. So that was the Common Threads when I did the Inspiration, Empowerment, and Balance.
Each book was a separate.
Yes. And all three of them went international bestseller at the same time. It was so cool.
That's exciting. That's very exciting.
It was totally exciting. We had these 100 powerful women, back in the project the whole time. They were out there on social media, and they were telling their stories in their voice, literally, on video and everything. And that just took off like wildfire.
Did you start the funding for that originally on Kickstarter?
Yes,
yeah. How'd that go? I'm fascinated by Kickstarter.
So good. Yeah, I got $13,000 for that through Kickstarter because I wanted to publish with a woman out of London. She does missing piece publications, and I had to raise the money to get them actually printed and all that good stuff, and the marketing and everything. But yeah, it was an amazing process, just the Kickstarter, because once you have an audience, you have people behind you. I mean, like, you could do that with Eric McKenna project. You got the people that support you, the people that know what value you bring with your project. Then they came on board, and it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think the whole format, the whole concept of crowdsourcing, I guess, or crowdfunding, is phenomenal. Especially,
and this was a time when not a lot of people were doing it. I mean, like now you got like a GoFundMe campaign for
Kickstarter
everything.
Was the first, right? Kickstarter was, if I'm not mistaken, that's for business. That was for. Is that right? I
would agree with that. Yes. Yeah. So, it was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see that all coming together. And again, when you put things in Kickstarter, it's an all or nothing project. So if I didn't raise the $13,000, then I would have gotten nothing.
Got it. I tell you. So you have to reach the goal.
You have to reach the goal. You have to get out there, and you have to have exchange of something. And I was forming the Global Sisterhood at the time, and had a wonderful woman in Pakistan who her little entrepreneurial women there were creating purses, and they sent them to us as one of the gifts. So people were able to get these amazing, one-of-a-kind little mini purses from Pakistan, and they were supporting women there in a country that has things like child brides and the Taliban, and women aren't allowed to be educated, but yet they were able to be a part of this bigger than life picture and trilogy and movement is what it's really become.
In your travels and journeys, talk a little bit about some of the extreme difficulties that other women are facing in other countries.
So many. It's unbelievable. There's Sister Zeph, who is the leader of the Zephaniah Free Education, and literally the women are not supposed to learn, and she's been running a school in her courtyard of her home for 20 years. And before the Global Sisterhood and Inspired Women here in Pittsburgh and some other organizations had come on board, it was a dirt ground floor, tents made out of sheets with holes in them, and just ratty old sheets, and no air conditioning, of course, no fans, no anything, and they're learning, and under great duress from the people outside. I mean, they've had babies that have been, many that have been killed just because they're girls. And she's been teaching these incredible kids and women for years. But luckily, we haven't really gotten into the Global Sisterhood yet, but when I wrote the Inspiration, Empowerment, and Balance, the Common Threads trilogy, One of the women was in Pakistan, different woman actually than the one we're discussing right now.
Okay.
But she heard one of my Empowering Women radio shows out of South Africa.
Okay.
Because I have been Skyping into a South African school and helping the empowerment circles there for years. Just volunteer, just like wanted to help them. She heard that, and here my God, these stories, they get so deep so quick. Her predecessor in the women empowerment work that she's been doing in Pakistan was actually shot and killed in the street because she was doing women empowerment work. She's the vice president of this organization, which we will not, I'm not giving any names away right now. But she was so incredible. And so I Skyped with her one day, and she's in full veil. I can just see here. And she was so amazed at how many people I had already connected her with that had brought things to her project in Pakistan.
Right.
And she said that she wanted me to be the journalist to tell her story. And I was like, well, first of all, at that time I didn't think of myself as a journalist at all. I was like, I think you're the wrong person. But she wanted me to be the one to tell that story. I put it in the book, and then I kept connecting her with people. And she said to me one day, when we were Skyping, she said, Shellie, do you know what you're doing here? And I said, I'm just like connecting my friends. And she said, no, you're forming a global sisterhood. And I was like, oh my God. That's so true. It's so true, because we all became sisters, and it became family around the world. Okay. And you might want to interject here, because I wanted to go back to Sister Zeph, because we were back at this.
It's your show.
It's my show. I think it says Eric McKenna on the walls.
keep running with it. I definitely wanted to ask about the Global Sisterhood, so let's just go into it.
Let's just flow into that.
Absolutely.
So we were actually able to raise money through some different funding projects. Like there's Inspired Women, which is a funding project, and then there's the Global Sisterhood pulls we pull funds, we pull resources, we pull anything we can, network with each other to help solve these different problems. And we call it pop-up giving, #pop-up giving.
Okay.
So when Sister Zeph came to us and said, I really need X, Y, and Z to keep going, we were able to make it so that we could send the funds to her through these various sources of women around the world. And now she's got uniforms for the kids and a floor and like a real brick and mortar school and healthy meals at lunchtime and textbooks and like everything you need to run a real true school. And for me as an educator, that's everything.
Absolutely.
So, and that's just one of many success stories that the Global Sisterhood has had. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit here, based in Pittsburgh, but we're around the world making a difference.
And what year was that?
So that year was 2016.
Okay. So it was formed in 2016.
Yes. Yeah, the Global Sisterhood.
The Global Sisterhood.
Yes. It's one of my favorite projects, and it's so exciting because like we'll get these pop-up givings from all over the world. Like we had Nasomo is a chief in Ghana, Africa, and I've been actually helping him with some of his leadership stuff. He's in like a chief over 30,000 people there, in all these different villages, and he knows of me as he calls me his professor. So, but
super
he had, super, yes, that was one of the titles I've heard. But he came to us and said that and Super comes back again. The Super Ladies is a soccer team there in Africa, and they're the champions, and they had no shoes for the new season. And so we found a way to get a organization here in Pittsburgh, actually, was able to donate 40 pairs of soccer shoes for the ladies there in Africa. And they actually call me the soccer mom of Africa. Which I love. That's like a great name for it. But yeah, so there's so many different stories, and it's right here in Pittsburgh too. Yeah. But it's all over the states and all over the world, and we just come together and make it happen. You mentioned Ghana. And I had earlier this year Dr. Stephen Green for Hope for Ghana. Yes. And he's out of Pittsburgh as well, and Dr. Green runs a nonprofit where they are building schools in Ghana. Perfect. And through that process, it was fascinating because he also discovered the bigger problem they had was they had no clean water. So he started this program where they bring companies in to drill these wells, I guess. And great guy. But again, like you mentioned, what you're talking about here is, again, in our first world problems here in this country, it's hard for us to really wrap our heads around poverty alone. I was taping the Inspiring Lives with Dr. Shellie over at the studios, and one of my people that came in to talk about what was going on in Guinea, Africa. She has a very thick accent. She's a beautiful woman, but she was talking about the tap, and she said, and the worm, and I was like, what are you, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying. The worm. And she was talking about, and when I got really like sick to my stomach on that, I was like, oh, are you serious? And she was talking about like these worms coming out of the tap. We're so damn used to clean water. And she's talking about these like parasites and things just like literally coming out of the faucet. And I was like, oh my God, we got to help. So yeah. There's so many things that are going on, and there's so many things that are going on right here, in Pittsburgh that are done behind, closed shelter doors, that also needs to have a spotlight on it. I feel like the world is so big and there's so many needs. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the Global Sisterhood is that we don't keep those doors shut. We keep them open and we figure out a way to help. Well, I read in your story that you were helping women's shelters. Yes. Talk Absolutely. A little bit about that. Yeah, I love going into the shelters. We've done a project a couple times that we call mommy makeovers, and some people hear that, they hear like the plastic surgery makeovers. Not going there, but that's not what it was about. Again, first world problems. First world problems, exactly. But so there are, like I said, 17 shelters that have been helped by the Homeless Children's Education Fund, and many of them have mothers and children that are together. And we went in one time and a couple times, and we've done like full makeovers, get a haircut, and to have some makeup on, and to get a new outfit. And Treasure House Fashions, I don't know if you know Sally Power from Treasure House Fashion. She's amazing. She's helped 60 charities in Pittsburgh, and over probably like 10,000 women and above. And we were able to get them outfits like head to toe, like they had the earrings and the outfits and the shoes. And we were able to just create like almost a spa-like atmosphere in this corner of the shelter. And this was at the Goodwill Healthy Start shelter. And we were just able to really get in there and make a difference, and painted the walls and made a big mural and got the kids dressed up. One of the things that was really special was we took pictures. We took family pictures because they don't have a way to get that family portrait done, and they wouldn't necessarily feel good about themselves on an average day, whatever they can put on their back. Especially women, they will always put their kids before them, most women, and it's just... But to have them dressed up and feeling good about themselves and having their nails clean and having their hair nice and styled and getting that picture. And there was a woman that really affected my heart one of those times. And she was just in a bit of tears, and just because she was just kind of overwhelmed. She was actually had a stalker out of Atlanta, which was her ex-husband or ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
And she had a big pregnant belly, Eric, and a kiddo running around beside her. Sweet little guy. And I said, you look so beautiful. And she was like, yeah, but I'm damaged. And I was like, wow, honey, we can put you back together. We had this big talk, and she actually was able to get out of the situation. And I think it helped. It's not the real impetus of how she got out of the situation and went on to get a good job and an apartment for her kids, and didn't have to give birth in the actual shelter. But I think that it helped that she was able to see herself in that way. I think that when we have an image of who we are, if we look in the mirror every day and it's not who we could want to become,
sure,
then we can't see it. It's like vision boarding. I'm sure you know people that do vision boarding.
Absolutely.
I do it all the time, especially with my students in the empowerU masterclass. But
we'll
once
talk
she
about that in
could
a
see
second.
that,
I have a question about vision boarding.
Yeah, once she could see it, I think that she was able to kind of put herself back together. There's a Japanese art form where they take the pottery that's broken and they fill it with gold. And I think that we're all a little broken. We all probably have our damaged parts.
I think we're all damaged. Yeah,
but we can fill it up and make it an art.
In the material that I read in regards to your background, you, like me, were a bit skeptical of The Secret. And as I read along in the material, your reasons are exactly the same as mine. So why don't you share a little bit about that movement, that movie, the book?
Absolutely.
And then where you think it's only part of the story.
Yes. And I will say that I did in many ways buy into The Secret, and I still love The Secret. I mean, I think that
vision boarding is kind of part of that.
Yes,
right?
Vision boarding is part of it. Law of attraction is part of it. But I had the great opportunity to interview John Assaraf, who was on The Secret, the movie, and in the book. And he's a guru, I would say. And he felt as well. We both felt that you can't just leave it up to the fates. It's not just going to manifest on its own. I mean, yes, I've had some things that have manifested just by being able to visualize them, but I put in a crap ton of work.
You can say it here, a shit ton of work.
I'm working when other people are sleeping. I'm making that happen.
And that's where I think the movement wasn't clear.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you had the celebrities, and
Yes.
and I get all that.
Absolutely.
And it got people's attention, which I guess was the main. And then that as a business entity itself was to make money, so they got people's attention.
Yes.
But I'll share this with you. As a child, I in my hometown here. I grew up in this town and come full circle, right?
Absolutely.
My parents were very big in the community, very big in the church, and it was a real struggle for me at times where I would see, and we're talking the late 70s, so the economy wasn't the greatest around here. People were out of work, and it was always pray. And some of them went out there and got jobs. And there were some that just never got off the couch. And I could see this as a young teen. And I was really, really moved by that.
Yeah.
Like action
Absolutely.
has to be with whatever you believe, whether it's prayer, whether it's affirmations, whatever it is. Without the action, there's nothing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You have to dig in and make it happen and make it yours. And I'm all about manifesting, but you have to just dig in and make it happen for yourself and for the ones that you love.
Yeah, I think I was really confused on that for a long time, and it wasn't until as we spoke off air, Jim Rohn had many quotes of Mr. Rohn's, but an impactful one for me was that affirmations without action is the beginning of delusion.
Yes.
I mean, you throw the word delusion in there, that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. And I mean, and there's narcissists running around doing just that. And it's so yeah, you can't just will it to happen. You have to put in the footwork. You have to. Speaking
about a lot of hard work, talk to me about the magazine.
I love my magazine.
How did that come about? What were the challenges of getting a magazine up and running? Because I can't even imagine.
There were a lot of challenges, and there still are. I mean, it's a print magazine, and now in 2020, and that's not.
But there's
easy.
something beautiful about that to me. There's something, and it goes back to those who. I read physical books, and I also read online.
Yeah,
I prefer the physical book.
Yeah,
but when you have a magazine, it's color, it's gloss.
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
and that does not translate to the web.
Right.
Even if you look at the PDFs from page to page.
Yeah, so and we have those. We've got the digital. We've got the app. We got all the beeps and whistles. Absolutely.
You have to.
But there's just something magic about the printed word and the colors and the aesthetics and pulling it all together and making the layout happen. I love it. And I just took Anna Winter, who is the editor-in-chief of Vogue. I took her masterclass online, and I love having a magazine.
It's tangible.
Yeah,
it's something
tangible. Absolutely.
You can look and feel it. You see it. So where did the idea come from?
The idea came from, I had kind of always wanted to have a magazine in the back of my mind.
Okay.
And I love the visuals. I love the just being able to see everything laid out in such a fantastic form. Actually, many of the books that I've written over the years, I was like, God, this would be so much better if it had, like the pictures and the visuals and this and that. And then when I had hired on my new COO, she's now 5 years into it, and that's Kelly Frost. I hired her on, and about a few weeks into her being, my business manager, my COO, I came to her with this project. There was a person that came to me that had an audience of like 1 million people that were business owners.
Okay.
And he said, I want you to put something into this business stack. And me being me, I didn't want it to be just something that anybody could put into it. And I was like, oh, how about a business magazine for women? Like, and that's where it started. It's not a business magazine for women necessarily anymore. But I went to her, and she was like, okay, I could get behind this. Yeah, we could do a magazine. She's like, I've worked in print before. She's like, so how many months do we have? And I was like, we have 2 weeks. She's like, excuse me, Shellie? I thought you said 2 weeks. And and we did it. We got advertisers and got the layout and
that
editors.
Couldn't have been easy.
And no, it was not. It was a scramble. And she says that she slept with her laptop and not her husband for 2 weeks, and we just went gung ho, and we got it out, and we got it to the stack, and then it was sort of born from there. And then we went to print, and now we're in all 655 Barnes and Nobles across the country, and we are just, we're making a huge impact. It's considered the magazine for empowering women. We've won awards. In 2020, we have switched it to a nonprofit magazine. So it's under the header of the Global Sisterhood.
Right.
So that we can continue to raise funds for that. And so that we can really feature and highlight some of these incredible women around the world that are doing fabulous things.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, I just find it phenomenal, because you're bucking the trend. The trend is digital. Everything goes digital,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, but I mean, pretty soon we're gonna be retro, for God's sakes. They're like, did you see that print magazine? Oh my God, it's amazing.
I feel retro every day I wake up. Trust me. There's no. Do you see the lava lamps here?
I love it. I love it. The lava. I like the red one here. That one's my favorite.
It's not working that great over there, is it?
That's okay.
Yeah, I got to figure that out. You have had the opportunity to speak in front of some very prestigious universities.
Yes, absolutely.
So talk to me about the commonality shared between audiences. Meaning, you speak at Oxford, and then you go into the Bronx and speak at a shelter.
Yeah.
Do you find commonality between audiences, even though the demographics?
We're all people. We're all humans. We all want the same thing. We want to be able to take care of our families. We want a good life. And whether you're in a homeless shelter and you've forgotten that you want that, or if you're at the cusp of it, or if you're at the University of Oxford in England, that was a trip. That was intense.
Well, talk to me about that.
So when you speak at the University of Oxford, at least the conference that I spoke at, they have a scholar, an Oxford scholar, in the back of the room.
Wow.
And when I spoke, it was based on a paper that I had written with some of my colleagues. And so those journals, like the really highfalutin peer-reviewed journals, like in the back, there's like all those lists, the bibliography and the endnotes and all that good stuff. Vivian Williams, Dr. Vivian, was at the back of the room. He knew all those people personally.
Okay.
Like, he could tear apart our paper and what we were saying like that. And he actually did the people right before us.
Okay.
Like, they left the stage and went off and were in tears. They got demolished by him because you have to stand up there right after you've spoken at Oxford University, one of the best universities in the world, and defend every single thing that came out of your mouth and every single thing that's in your paper. And
he's got it in front of interrogation to me.
It feels like it. But I was so pleased that we did our research so well that, like, instead of going off and crying, we went to the pub.
And they've got some good ones over there.
Exactly. Yeah, we pretty much nailed it. It was an exciting time, just to be able to say, we went up against the scholar, some of the greatest scholars in the world. And
what was the name of the paper? What was the title of your presentation?
Oh my God, Eric! I don't know.
That's okay.
So much stuff.
What was the basis of it?
I know it was about the future of educational leadership because that's what my doctorate was in, and that's what I was working on at that point.
Okay.
So it was taking. It was very scholarly. Like, it's not something that, like, people be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna download that one."
So you're saying it wasn't real sexy material?
Not sexy at all. Not at all. It was not like the stuff that I do now with the sparkly sequin dresses and the fabulousness and the deep stories. Yeah. So but I love both of them. I love doing the research and the scholarly stuff. That's fun. It's good. It's stimulation for the brain.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's fun to be able to defend stuff like that. That's fun for me.
Sounds like you have a little attorney in you.
I might. Look out. I think I'll stick to what I do.
Well, let me ask, of all the projects that you have in the air, what consumes, besides being a mother and a wife?
Yes.
Okay, I get that part. See, I'm thinking ahead. Besides your personal life, what projects command the most of your time?
The empowerU masterclass.
Talk about that.
Yes, I'd love to. So being a former teacher and a professor and principal and all that stuff, I love to educate. I love it. And I had been collecting basically curricula around how to have your best life, how to find that inspiration, empowerment, and balance. And all the research was in the books and the transcripts and the life that I was living. And I created a 7-week curriculum that is online, and then I do one-on-ones with these incredible women. They're real powerhouses. I mean, badass, if you want to say.
You can say that. You can say that.
And most of them are just needing a little tweak in their life, and they aren't really sure what it is.
Okay.
But then the other beautiful thing about empowerU is that I'm going into my 4th cohort of it. So we've got these 4 cohorts of women that are coming together and lifting each other up and supporting each other. And like we talked about vision boarding. So we will put all our vision boards online, and then these other women will say, oh my gosh, you want to do that? Oh, I have a podcast. You could be on my podcast, and then I'd love to be on your thing, and we'd like to do this, and then we could
so the networking starts.
Right. Oh yeah. And like nonprofits and businesses and so many things have been created by being in this safe space where women can say, okay, this is what I'm struggling with. How can we take this to the next level?
Do you feel that besides the obvious legislative changes in the 20th century, do you feel that women continue to make progress in improving their lives universally, not just in this country but other countries? And do you think the opportunities continue to improve for women, both in business, socially, the female condition? Do you believe it is improving?
Wow, that's a big question.
Well, it's multifaceted. That's what I do here.
I know. I agree.
If I didn't think you can answer it, I wouldn't ask.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. And I've spoken to some of I've spoken to some of the greats with it, and you'll get different answers from different people. Billie Jean King, I've spoken with, and she said she's shocked that we're not where we're supposed to be. Gloria Steinem, I gave one of the Empowering Women in Philanthropy Awards, the Lifetime Achievement Award. She still feels like there's still work that needs to be done. So these women that really were at the forefront of the women's movement decades ago are still saying, honey, we ain't there yet. I think that we have a voice. I think that with the Me Too movement, I think that we've been able to really say, knock it off, boys. Let's all be on the same playing field. I think that we're still not making the amount of money that men are making. That's a problem. But have we created spaces and pockets where we can thrive and then lift each other up? Absolutely. So are we on the right track? Yes. But there are still things that need to be done.
We have first world problems in this country. Basically, we just complain about things that really don't matter. They're annoyances. Would you not agree?
Yep.
Do you view yourself at times as a conduit because of the nonprofit work and because of your writing and what you've done? Are you a conduit to educate us first world folks about what really is happening over there? And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Dr. Green in his work with Ghana. How hard is that? How difficult is it to speak to Americans and explain and really get them to empathize what others are going through in other countries? And in your case, women.
I think it's tricky when it's just two of us sitting down. That is why so many times when I'm on a stage or I'm in my magazine or I'm in my books, I have those women beside me, literally, not just figuratively. I have them beside me, and I have them tell their story, and I interview them so that their story can totally be told through the correct lens. It goes back to that story that I misinterpreted. I think that when we hear it through their voice, when we hear it through their eyes and what they've really been through, I think that's when we can break through and really get to that American heart. When we can compare it, when if Asada was sitting here or Mariama or some of these women that have been through this, and they can talk to the heart of an American. I think that It comes through. Conduit is a very interesting word that you picked because that's how I feel about myself.
Okay.
I definitely see myself as a conduit, and that can be exhausting sometimes, because I have thousands of people's stories in my head. I've interviewed over 1,000 women. I have their stories. I have their problems. I have their dreams and wishes. And my heart makes it so that I want to help every single person that walks into my life. And I know that that's not possible.
Right.
But I think that I've been given the gifts to be able to take the research, take the interviews, take those things, and be able to put it out there in the world. And people are listening. Thank God. I mean, thank God, because we're able to provide the support that is needed because of that.
What's on tap besides the book?
Oh, so many things.
Do tell.
I know that I'm going to be doing a lot more speaking in the near future. The book, the empowerU masterclass has been so successful, and people are really rallying so that I can do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. They want me to do an entrepreneurU.
Okay.
So take it from the empowerU, so that these women are really empowered now. Right. They've got that inspiration, empowerment, and balance, and then we can take it, and especially with the 13th book, Ballgowns to Yoga Pants, coming out, I can take that and then create a curriculum wrapping around how to really create a sustainable business that is the dream business.
Okay. The magazine continues to go full throttle?
Heck yeah, absolutely. We love it. We love it. Yeah. So people should get on, inspiringlivesmagazine.com and subscribe to that. And if you are trying to reach an audience of women, I got them. If you want them to be your clients or your customers, let's talk. Definitely.
You hear that out there?
You hear that out there?
Have you ever met Darieth Chisholm?
Of course.
Okay.
Darieth was, she was on the cover of the magazine with me. I
did not know that.
She actually, there's a funny story there. I was telling you about Kelly Frost, my COO.
Yes.
I met her when I did Darieth's Hustle and Heart television show, like a podcast show.
So you were a guest on that show?
I was.
I'm very familiar with that show.
Yes.
Okay.
So I did that show, and and Kelly was working for her then. I kind of stole her away. I got Darieth's blessing first, but yeah, Darieth has been a huge part of this movement and of the Global Sisterhood and Inspiring Lives magazine. She writes for us every quarter. So she's got a standing.
How about that? She was a guest on my show.
Excellent. Yeah, she's fabulous.
She was a wonderful woman, and she was a fantastic guest.
Yes, she always is.
She was. Her story has been
amazing.
Yeah, her story has been absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Her whole talk about someone that's impassioned on a mission.
Absolutely.
She is on a mission.
Absolutely.
With 50 Shades of Silence.
Absolutely.
For sure. So
yes.
It's been great, my friend.
It's been awesome.
Are you going to come back and see me?
Of course.
Give me an update?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
So how can they reach you? Let them all know all the options to reach you on every social media. Here we go.
All the options.
That's right.
Okay, so they can either do the Inspiring Lives magazine route, so that we've got all of them: Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm Dr. Shellie, Dr.Shellie. You can find me. Inspiring Lives International. Actually, we didn't even get into that about being a CEO. But yes, so
you know what? We have time. Let's do that because I knew I was missing something.
No, it's sort of an umbrella.
Was that founded first? Was that the first thing?
Yes. So
and
that became an LLC.
From that. Is that right?
Yes. And now we've got the Global Sisterhood and Inspiring Lives International. So if you talk to Kelly, my COO, she says that everything under Inspiring Lives International is now the Shellie Show. So it's like it's my keynotes and empowerU masterclass and the 13 books. And then over here under the Global Sisterhood, we've got the incredible events. Like we have at Bella Sarah on May 1st, we've got the Empowering Women in Philanthropy Awards, and We've got the Global Gala that brings in women from around the world. That's so fun. Guys can come to the gala too. It's so fun.
Okay.
You'll love that. I'll expect you there.
Okay.
It's in the fall, so it's a ways away. And then we've also got the magazine now under the Global Sisterhood.
Okay.
And we have the amazing humanitarian work that we do around the world.
So the only thing I hear that's not in there is a podcast.
People keep telling me I have had podcasts
or a
in
web
the past,
show like we're
or
doing
a web
here.
show. I've had them in the past, and maybe the universe is telling me and Eric McKenna that it's about time that I do it again.
Well, I mean, with your background in radio, with your background in speaking, and with your television show
Absolutely,
prior.
yes. And I've got people that, like, my ladies in Tanzania, Africa, they're like, please, we've watched all your YouTubes. We need something more to watch and learn
They're
from you.
starving for content, Shellie.
Yes. So maybe 2020, maybe that's something I should stack under there. Definitely.
Well, I appreciate it very much for your appearance today.
Thank you.
And this was very good.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you soon.
You will.
All right.
Okay.
Dr. Shellie. See y'all. We are out.
Awesome. Yay.
You happy? Did it go good?
Yes, you're a great host.
Really? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making up as I go.
You do too.